The purpose of this video will be to give some basic guidelines about the exam assignments, take you through the study guides and tell you about how to use those, and I'm also going to take you through a quick demonstration of just how to use the program that will administer the exam to you. Okay, so first, for any information on the exams, let's take a look at the exams tab on Blackboard. And when we do that, we see there's a separate folder for exam 1 and 2. There really isn't anything in a technical or formatting sense that's different between exam 1 and 2. They have different dates and obviously they have different content, but the form's going to be the same. So we're just going to talk about exam 1, and that will also be sufficient to inform you about exam 2. So exam 1, when we click on that folder, we see a couple things in this folder. If you look right here, this is the program that will administer the exam to you. When it's time to take the exam, you'll click on it. Now, one thing to not get worried about is that if you go on Blackboard right now and you click on the exam 1 folder, you actually won't see this item. It's currently hidden from students. It'll be available to you when the exam becomes available. I'm currently in my instructor view of the Blackboard page, so I can see it. And I have it here because I'm going to take you through a demonstration of how to use the exam program. But just don't get thrown off if when you go to the exam 1 folder, you don't see that item there. It will be there when you need it. It will be there when the exam becomes open for you to use. Okay, so before we do that, let's take a look at the study guide. So when you open up the study guide document, it has a couple things. The first thing it has is just a description of some basic points about the exam you'll want to be familiar with, and that I'm going to go over now. So first, the format of the exam it's an essay exam, and you will be required to answer 2 essay questions. Each of those is worth 100 points, and so the total exam is 200 points, and which makes it a quarter of your grade. So a couple questions you might have is, okay, I have to answer 2 essay questions. Where will they come from? How should I prepare? This is where you want to go down to the latter part of the study guide. And if you scroll through, you will see that right now, already there are 6 possible essay questions uploaded on the study guide. So here's possible essay question 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. If you went down, you would see 5 and 6. So all the possible essay questions for exam 1 are already uploaded there. And when you take the exam, you'll be required to answer 2 of those. So the next question is, well, do I get to choose which 2? And the answer to that is no. The program will actually choose for you 2 randomly selected questions that you will be required to answer, right? And so the idea is that first, you shouldn't expect that the questions that a classmate sees will be the one you see because they're randomly selected. And you should plan on preparing for all the questions because you don't know which ones you will see. However, it's also important to emphasize that when I showed you those essay prompts below, those are the prompts word for word that you would see on the exam. So for instance, if essay question 1 was randomly selected, you would see word for word exactly this right here. And the same with essay question 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So you will see 2 of those essay questions word for word as they appear on the study guide. Okay, so I want to say a few other things about how the program will work. So first of all, like I said, the program that administers the exam is not available now. It will, however, be available during the week that you take the exam. So for exam 1, the program will become available on October 12th at 8 a.m. And you will have all the way until, so that's a Monday, you'll have all the way until Friday of that week on October 16th at the end of the day to submit the exam. So, and one other very important point about what will happen when you click on the exam and you're ready to take it. So you might have something in mind like this. Okay, I'll click on the exam, I'll see what questions I get, and then it'll like 2 or 3 hours maybe to answer them. So what you'll actually see is when you click on the exam, you will be given 2 randomly selected questions, but you're only going to have 20 minutes to submit your answers. And you might say, well, this doesn't seem right because given how detailed the prompts are, I don't think 20 minutes would be enough time to answer the questions, and you would be right. So this is actually intentional. 20 minutes would not be enough time to write out your answers. What I have in mind is that by the time you click on that link that takes you to the exam, you would already have written out your responses to all 6 essay questions. And then all you're doing when the program gives you one of the questions is just uploading a document from your computer that you've already prepared. Maybe you're doing some final edits, just checking it out, but basically all the work is done. So I really cannot stress this enough. Do not open the exam link. Do not open the exam until you are ready to submit. Because if you do it before you're ready, if you haven't prepared all your answers, you're just gonna have 20 minutes to submit, and that simply won't be enough time. And the program will close after 20 minutes, and whatever you've uploaded, whether it's half finished, not finished at all, that's what your submission will be. So you don't want to do that, right? If you want to wait till the the very end, like towards the end of the day on Friday to submit because you're working on your answers, that's totally fine. Just do not open it until you are ready to submit your answers. Okay. Now, the other big question you might have is how I'm going to grade your essays. And so there's a couple points I want to make here, which I think it's helpful to actually look at one of the possible questions. So here's the first possible essay question you could see. I've done a few things to help you out. Notice that I've told you which lesson this material comes from. So it comes from lesson 2 on Plato's Euthyphro. And then there are a couple of components to the question that you should be aware of. First, there's this title right here. And so sometimes students will ask me, do I have to provide an answer to that? And the answer is no. That's just the title that tells you what the topic of the question is, that ties it all together. What you need to provide an answer to is everything in here. And so I want to make this a few things as clear as I possibly can. First, you'll notice that the question is divided into 2 parts. This does not mean you get to choose which part you answer. You have to answer everything in part 1. Let's highlight it all. Everything in part 1, and you have to answer everything in part 2. It is not a situation where you choose what questions you answer or you choose what parts of the questions you answer. You have to answer everything. And I want to make that very clear because on other assignments, for instance, the response papers, on those prompts I had an area of the prompt which said, here are some questions to consider, and I told you, look, use those questions if they're helpful to you, but you don't have to feel like you have to answer everything. The exams really are different. The exams are less about you developing your own argument and more about demonstrating to me that you understand the basic content of the course. And so for that reason, you want to make sure that you answer every single question that is included here, and you do so in a detailed and clear fashion. So it's, for instance, what is Euthyphro's third definition of piety? Make sure you answer that. How is this definition different from a second one? Make sure you answer that. How does Euthyphro's third definition of piety make the discussion of the dialogue relevant for either monotheism or polytheism? Make sure you answer that. So the point is, you want to read the question very carefully and make sure you provide an answer to every single point in that question. Because this is the first thing I'll look at. I'll just look at, I'll first grade you on completeness, right? If you have a part of the question that's simply unanswered, then you won't get points for that question. And when I do the grading, I have a certain amount of points that in mind for each part of the question. So if you have no response to that, then you simply won't get any credit for that part of the question. So you want to take a very detailed look at the entire question and make sure you answer everything. Also, you notice that not all the prompts are like this, but this prompt in particular has a quote attached to it. Some of them do, some of them don't. And in the prompt it says, explain how Socrates rejects Euthyphro's third definition of piety by making reference to the passage where appropriate. So it's referring to this passage down here. So that just means in your answer, if there's a passage I want you to comment on, you should be commenting on specific parts of that passage, showing your understanding of it, and showing how it relates to all the things I'm answering in the prompt. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. Do you completely answer the question? Does everything in the question or the prompt have an answer? Now, secondly, of course, I'm also looking for accuracy. I'm looking that the claims you make are true. And above and beyond that, and this is specifically because this is an online course and this is a take-home exam, in some sense, my grading standards for this are higher than if you were to take the same exam in class. Which makes sense, because if you think about it, if you took the exam in class, you would have more time constraints. Maybe you'd have, 1.5 hours or 2 hours to take it. You wouldn't have your notes available, all that sort of thing. But given that you have sort of the whole week, or really from this moment on, you can start working on your essay questions. So given that you can work on them at home, over time, and you have all your notes, you have the lectures available, the outlines, the video lectures, given that all that is available to you, my standards for correctness will be higher. And I'll be looking to see that you don't simply just regurgitate explanations of the points in just the way I've explained them on the outlines or in the videos, but that you explain it in a way that shows your understanding. If you use your own examples, if you explain points in novel ways, if you show that you're critically thinking about the points being made as you explain them, those are all things I'll look for, and those are the sort of things that the essays which are the best, which get a grade of an A, those are the sorts of things they would do. But in general, you want to make sure you answer everything completely, and go above and beyond to show me that you have in fact thought carefully about the points and that you truly understand them and are not just regurgitating them. Now, one other thing I want to make, because at this moment all 6 essays are uploaded for exam 1, that's not yet the case for exam 2, but it will be. You'll have all those essays by the time you need them. Given that they're all uploaded, you could begin now, and I would in fact suggest this, you could begin now writing out your possible responses to these questions. And just think how much easier life would be if by the time, if you had prepared gradually, just every week you worked a little bit on the essays, worked a little bit, and then by the time you got to exam week, then you're going back, reading over your essays, maybe making some final additions, making some changes, but basically all the work's done. That would be a lot less stressful than if you got to exam week, you haven't done any of the preparation, and you're already feeling behind. So I've really set it up to allow you to build and work on the exams gradually to the point where by the time we get to exam week, you really shouldn't be feeling the sort of stress and pressure you'd normally be feeling around the time of an exam. That's at least the goal. But of course, it's up to you to take advantage of that structure. Okay, so I think that's all I want to say about the study guide and just about the questions themselves. As always, look, if you have questions, certainly email me. But to conclude this video, I want to take you through just a demonstration of how the exam program works so that you are in fact familiar with it. So again, you won't be able to see this right now, but once exam week gets here, this will become available and you'll simply click on exam 1. Okay, so it's going to tell you a few things. It'll tell you that the test has a limit of 20 minutes, that once the time expires, it's automatically going to submit your work. It'll be a forced completion. And it'll also tell you when the due date is, right? So the date after which you will no longer be able to take the exam. So when you're ready, and remember, I can't stress this enough, do not click on the begin button until you have written out all your essays, because then once you click that button, you have 20 minutes to submit. So once you're ready, once you have responses to all the questions, then click begin. Okay, so what do we see? So here I'm given one of the possible essays, Plato's Arguments for the Immortality of the Soul. Now, just to be clear, I haven't given anything away, because remember, these are randomly selected questions, so this is one question you could see, but you might not see it as well, right? So it's just going to depend on luck of the draw which questions you actually see. Okay, but I got this question, so now I'm ready to provide an answer. How do I do that? So you have to attach a separate file. You will not be typing your answers into the program. So you should already have these. I would recommend already having 6 documents ready to go, right? Where each document has the answer to one of the essays. Okay, so I click on Browse My Computer, and I already have here just some sample documents. I'm going to click Answer to Question 1. This is my document for. I'm saying this is my document which has an answer to the first essay question. And it loads up, and in case you want to check to make sure that you've matched the right response to the right question, remember you don't want to have accidentally submitted the wrong answer to a question that's meant for a different one. We can check it out, so click on it. And here's my excellent answer to question 1, right? So you would have an entire response written out to that first prompt. Okay, so I've got a submission for question 1. Now I'll move to question 2, and just so you know, you are able to move back and forth between these questions. So if you say, oh, wait a minute, there's something I need to change on the first question, that's fine. You can just go back and you can remove that document and upload a new one if you want. But let's go to question 2. So now I've got another randomly selected question. This is actually the one we were just looking at, Socrates' criticism of Euthyphro's third definition of piety. So now I'll upload my other document, answer to question 2. And give it some time to load up. And we can check it out. And here's my excellent answer to question 2. So that's pretty much it, right? I have documents submitted for both questions. Once you feel comfortable with those documents, then you can go ahead and click Save and Submit. Okay, and that's pretty much it. At that time, then I will have a notification that you submitted your exam, and you'll simply go from there. So the mechanics are pretty easy, but really I can't stress enough, please do not begin the exam before you've written out all the responses that you need to each possible essay question. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about the exams in this video. Like I said, if you have any confusions, any problems or questions, please do not hesitate to send me an email. So I'll cut it there. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.